timers and young people. I would say it's fairly universal, and I'm sure you've heard the same thing.
Absolutely. Here's one thing that bothers me. I was introduced to wrestling during the Bob Backlund, right? I'm a WWE guy, Northeast, obviously. How do you feel about the WWE kind of trying to wipe out Backlund's history in order to Reigns to chase Hulk Hogan as number two?
Well, are they wiping out his history? I guess they're not acknowledging him a lot.
Well, they kind
But I
of they
don't.
kind of have Hogan as being the next guy up. They kind of push Backlund
Yeah,
out of that two
I know.
spot.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, how much have they really played up Bruno either? I mean, when you think about it, Bruno won the title in '63 and lost it the first time in '71. So no one can even go near that. I do find there's a dividing line. And this, I mean, I've known this for 20 years when I started writing these books for WWE. The books that predated the Hogan era just didn't sell. You know, the people at Simon and Schuster told me that. It's almost as if that was some other kind of wrestling, and Hulk Hogan is the beginning of wrestling history. Um, and I guess that's, if you look at the market value of, of how pro wrestling is perceived. I think Backlund was a great athlete, and I think that he should always be acknowledged. I was very heartened, I think, in 2013 when him and Bruno were finally inducted into the Hall of Fame. It was long overdue. Um, I don't think WWE, I never feel like they're trying to bury Backlund. I think they're really just trying to elevate Reigns and the importance of Reigns as champion, because it is very rare in this era, in this modern era, for somebody to hold a championship that long.
But are you okay with that kind of liberty they're taking? Like, I don't want to say
They
erasing
always,
history.
I mean, look, I don't say they're erasing history, but look, there's always, yes, there always has been a bit of liberty taken. I just was writing about this. I'm working on my next book now, which is about how WrestleMania 3 transformed the industry. It's for the same publisher, ECW Press. And I'm writing about Harley Race. And I remember I was working for the WWF magazine at the time when Harley Race came in. And we couldn't say that he was an 8-time NWA champion because we weren't allowed to acknowledge the NWA. I was allowed to write that he's been a champion all over the world. Um, and they gave him a crown. They called him the king. So maybe they were acknowledging his importance. But it was a little frustrating because he's one of the greats. And I wish I could have blatantly said he is one of the great champions of all time.
Speaking of WrestleMania 3 you just brought up, would you consider Hogan Andre the greatest match of all time, or maybe the most important match of all time?
Well, the greatest, of course, it's not going to be. Important, I would say, especially since I'm writing a book about why WrestleMania 3 is so important, how it transformed the industry. It is a symbol of when the perception of wrestling truly changed. People were completely invested in that match, so much so that they sold out a football stadium. And let's not, let's look at what wrestling was like before 1987. The notion of professional wrestling selling out an NFL stadium was kind of unthinkable. And if you were a sponsor, if you were a licensee, if you were in the business world, if you were in advertising, like wrestling was considered low grade entertainment. It was considered almost a throwaway diversion. And this proved the Hogan versus Andre, people who were not wrestling fans were caught up in the anticipation of that. And now I go to WrestleMania and people fly in from all over the world. And it's not just WWE, it's a week of wrestling related activities of all sorts. There's wrestling comedy shows, there's wrestling documentaries, there's indie promotions from, Tokyo Yoshi, the women's wrestling promotion from Japan, was in Los Angeles last year, WrestleMania. Progress from, the United Kingdom. It puts on a show WrestleMania week. WXW from Germany. I went to one of their shows a few years ago in New York, WrestleMania week. All of that happens now because of WrestleMania 3. And so, you sure it was the WWE or WWF marketing machine? But I think Hogan versus Andre, in terms of importance, those two guys are the ones who drew everybody to that particular party.